patience for A, B, C, D, E, F, G, Y is the government poisoning me. They say they keep us safe, but create lots of risk. They lie to us about almost everything. Large food companies create two versions of their food, one for the USA, full of poison and cleaner versions, but when the chemicals are banned, the suck-care system plans on us arriving sick and patients for life. Monthly subscriptions till we die. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, why is the government poisoning me? They say they keep us safe, but create lots of risk. They lie to us about almost everything. Large food companies create two versions of their food, one for the USA, full of poison and cleaner versions, but when the chemicals are banned, the suck-care system plans on us arriving sick and patients for life. Monthly subscriptions till we die. Monthly subscriptions till we die.
All right. Welcome to Exposing the Silent Genocide. And you might wonder, what in the hell does that even mean? Well, that's what you're going to find out. You're not going to like it, I promise you, but you probably need to listen to this. Where do I start? So, my name is Discarded Vet. I am a Desert Storm Gulf War illness veteran. And you go, what in the heck is Gulf War illness? What is that? Well, you could look it up and see all sorts of stuff about it. But there's also a bunch of stuff that nobody knows about, including the victims of our very own United States government gassing us, testing on us, which, from my understanding now, 34 years after this event, that is a human rights violation and breaks the Geneva Convention, Nuremberg, all that stuff. Like, you're not supposed to expose humans or animals to toxins to figure out what kind of damage it does and all that, especially on a mass scale. And really, hardly anybody knows about this. I can imagine that you don't. That Desert Storm was the largest friendly fire event in global history. There was 700,000 U.S. troops in war theater, including myself. My ship was the farthest north ship. of the Navy, we were clearing mines for the fleet so they could get up to Kuwait City for the duration of the war until the war ended shortly after that. Was a quick war. It was the one U.S. war, or I guess they call it a conflict. I don't know. War, conflict, what's the difference, right? When you're using really nasty weapons to kill your enemies and you're using really nasty chemical and bioweapons to kill your own troops. That's what we got here, folks. Think I'm lying? Look it up. Um, this isn't the first time that the U.S. government has tested on human beings. The U.S. government has tested on populations without them knowing, including, there was a big inject some uh, bacteria or something, something to make people sick in the fog in San Francisco. I think it was 2015, as late as 2015. Nobody knows about this stuff. The San Francisco people do because they experienced that. Um, you have the early, like Tuskegee tests where they tested on prisoners. I think that one, I could be wrong, but if not, if I'm wrong, then they did this too. They gave like syphilis to a bunch of um, inmates and didn't treat them just to see what it would do to them. And I do believe they were all black as well. Could be wrong on that, but I have brain damage, and I have brain damage because my own government that I thought I was serving and the people I thought I was protecting um, decided to do this to me. And and everybody else, they are doing it to everybody else now. It was a cover up from the very beginning. And it continues to be a cover up even after the PACT Act, which, if you've even heard of the PACT Act, you might know something about that. It was all over the news. 2020 to 2022 years, um, where they initially killed the PACT Act bill. And the reason why they killed the PACT Act bill is because the Senate Affairs Committee up on Capitol Hill decided, quote, this is basically what they said, and I might be a word or two off. I'm sorry. Don't sue me or throw me in jail, corrupt government, if that's the case. I'm already a big target for doing this anyway. I've already been a big target before because I alert and inform everybody about this, including sick veterans who aren't getting the help. And I am another sick veteran who doesn't get help. As the United States of America continues to gaslight the nation, saying that they support the troops, they take care of the troops, and everything's good. Oh, it is far from good. Far, far, far from good. 90% of disability claims are denied. Yet they're currently trying to gaslight the nation again that there's all this vet fraud and all these vets faking that there's illnesses and they just have to cut it all off and fix all this fraud. You might have heard about that too. Especially if you're a vet, you probably heard about it. Probably most definitely if you're a sick vet, you've heard about it. But that's what you would normally think, right? That seems very logical. But what I've learned as a sick vet myself, that, we don't know what's going wrong with us. The way that these toxins affect our bodies and our minds, it's really hard to understand, even as an affected person, what is going on. And the whole medical world is in a groupthink situation about toxins where um, if you were exposed to some chemical and you didn't have organ failure or other really serious problems right then you're fine. The the exposure wasn't acute, I think is the words they use. And in the food industry, and I think products, maybe they don't use it with products, but something similar, I'm sure, where it's called generally recognized as safe, GRAS. Um, and that GRAS is a load of BS. Um, there are no safe limits of toxins in the human body, especially when you're getting it day after day, especially when you're getting other toxins on top of that generally recognized as safe toxin that isn't supposed to make you sick. And suddenly you have a mad scientist mixing beakers of all these chemicals in your body, and your body has now become a mad scientist lab. Same thing they did to us in Desert Storm that made us sick. And now after the conflict or war or whatever you call it, whatever you want to call it, the most successful war in US history, where we kicked ass. We finished it in 2 months. Wow, why does nobody know about Desert Storm? You think that, with all the losses of wars and all the illegal wars and, you know, other conflicts such as the the global war against terrorism, which is, I would really define as the global government's terrorism on citizens of the planet, and is actually part of this whole charade, this whole reality that they are covering up with this charade that's really going on. And what's really going on, if you want to get down to the core root issue of what's going on here, is, and it's just like the sick care system too, um, is that there's a corrupt power in charge, and they out of their own mouths for years um, have said that uh, hold on, I apologize, I'm sorry, I lost my thought there. I started thinking about something I missed that's very important, and that was related to what I was saying just before this. And these kind of moments, what are they called, brain farts or whatever, um, you probably think it's normal, you have them too, right? No, it's not normal. It is absolutely not normal, especially how often it happens and how severe it happens and how young it happens, because all the old people diseases have now moved from the mostly senior citizen only, with the few rare exceptions in children and a few adults too or whatever, clear into babies and even into the womb and even into infertility. 30% of people trying to have kids these days cannot, which is why IVF is so popular. And what you're going to find in this exposing the toxin silent genocide podcast, or I don't know, I wouldn't even really call it a podcast, I'd call it a public service announcement, um, because you're in danger, you have been in danger, you aren't going to be attacked in the future, you've been attacked for at least 30 years, at least 30. um, so when you listen to this PSA, I think that's probably the best thing to call this. even though it's kind of like in, latest terms, I guess it would be called a podcast. There's going to be different episodes, there's going to be different guests. And if you want to be a guest, certainly email me. Actually, no, don't email me. Um, Contact me through Facebook at Discarded Vet Doc, which is a public facing uh, Gulf War illness or Gulf War illness is a toxic exposure damage to the body. That's what it really is. It's not a bug you catch. It's not something that's passed down to through your genes. However, toxic exposures do pass down to further generations, which is why this is so dangerous for all humans on planet Earth. Every single one of you listening right now, even if you aren't in America, this is happening to you too. I'm sure, as a matter of fact, probably more of it is happening. Because they drill the oil in your backyard and that kind of stuff. They don't really do that here much, except in Texas, I guess, a few other places. So, um, we're all getting sick. Most of America is sick. As they tested on the nuke vets. Well, let's back up. As they tested on the World War I vets with chemical weapons, as they tested on the World War II vets with other things, including more chemical weapons, but they added extra stuff. As they tested on the nuke vets after World War II to, wow, what does this nuclear technology actually do to people? And sure, they were doing it during the war too, while they were developing the bomb, all that kind of stuff, which is also the absolute proof of what is happening to us vets, where they've told us for 31 they've covered it up in the beginning. Activist vets force them by debunking their lies and cover-ups to acknowledge it. And it was supposed, and that's been a fight ever since Desert Storm. And the nuke vets, Agent Orange vets, and Desert Storm was, I believe, in my opinion, the last beta test of this stuff on the human being before they released it into the world in mass scale. And they did other tests too. It wasn't just in the Persian Gulf. That was the final test. And Agent Orange was one of those. It's an organophosphate neurotoxin. And that's what we're focusing on this PSA, because it is the root issue. And as you notice in the healthcare system, and this is one of the things that I was thinking, oh man, I forgot to say that, because these toxins cause problems with memory, it causes problems with communication, it causes problems with association or critical thinking. They are literally chemically dumbing us down. It creates conflicts. It creates relationship problems. The groupthink out there with people in general is, if you have brain damage, you'll know. Right? Isn't that what everybody thinks? You'll absolutely know as a brain damaged person that you have brain damage. Well, let me tell you, as a brain damaged person, that's pretty false. I'm sure it happens. I'm not saying it doesn't. But especially with the organophosphate neurotoxins and I'm sure other toxins that do the similar damage to the brain, the nervous system, the human body as a whole, especially the gut. It's a metabolic disease which runs into diabetes, Alzheimer's, dementia, autoimmune diseases, cancers. And ever since 1995, all of that has exponentially increased as the science of understanding all this stuff has also exponentially increased. And the research has, the understanding of these mechanisms has also exponentially increased. And when that happens, you're supposed to go, hey, wait, we got to change some stuff. Is that happening? No. It absolutely is not happening. And there's a whole 30 years and more, because they did most of the research creating these weapons. And after they covered it all up, starting in Desert Storm, and they've continued to cover up, and activists kept fighting till the PACT Act, where the Veteran Affairs Committee said themselves, I didn't finish saying this, we cannot open the floodgates on toxics. That's what they said. And they killed the PACT Act. That's what happened first. And then a bunch of veteran activists and VSO organizations, such as American Legion, I believe, and Disabled Vets of America, and a whole bunch of others, were on Capitol steps, veterans in wheelchairs and oxygen, et cetera, and it wasn't good optics for the government when that happened. So they resurrected the PACT Act. They passed the PACT Act, which the whole idea of the bill is to honor the pact and admit that toxic exposures cause more than just, it's just in your head problems. It's just mental. That's it. That's the farthest thing from the truth possible. Because as you notice in the sick care system, they only address symptoms. They only mask symptoms. It doesn't resolve. That's why you have to keep taking those lifetime subscriptions of medications, which are very dangerous, many of them, especially when you're taking them in combinations. And once again, you're running a mad scientist lab body with all these medications mixing in their beakers or your arteries and your organs, and results may vary, and they do vary, which makes it the perfect crime for the ones that decided to do this to all of us. And you're going, oh, this is a sick, brain damaged Desert Storm veteran who just wants everybody else to be suffering as much as he is. Well, ask yourself your own question. How much suffering, how much sickness do you see in your family? How many young members of your family have cancers, died of SIDS? The mothers having miscarriages. Ask yourself. If you're older like me and have been around for, 50, 60, 70 years or whatever, ask yourself, what was life back in the 70s? Was there a bunch of obese children in schools, or was there one or two obese children in the whole school that you definitely didn't want to be because they got treated very, very poorly? And it's very, very sad, but that's how it was. Now there's probably one or two kids who aren't obese in schools, and I might be exaggerating there. Some of these toxins, they affect people differently. There are skinny kids, and there are skinny people that are toxic exposed. Um, and I know I'm bouncing around all over the place because that's an effect of these toxins on the brain. It's what happens. They call it ADHD, um, all sorts of things. Um, but it's brain dysfunction. It's problems in the brain disrupted from these chemicals. Because the root cause of all this stuff, that's happening to us, all these illnesses, the cancers, the dementias, everything is because these toxins get into the cells. They damage the cells, they damage the mitochondria. And the mitochondria are the energy centers of the human body of cells. And they produce a thing called ATP, which is the currency of your body, the energy currency. All the cells need the ATP, etc., to operate, to do their function. And when the ATP isn't there, you get these things called fatigue, which has been gaslit to everybody that you're just lazy, or it's all in your head. Just, take responsibility for yourself and snap to, which you can do until you can't. And it's different for everybody. The perfect crime. And those differences are different organ failures, different system failures in the body. And because everything's interdependent on each other, well, most things, you know, in order for the heart to beat, it has to have oxygen from the lungs, and it delivers all the oxygen to the rest of the cells. All the cells need the oxygen. So all these things working together, these major systems, and like the gut is the repair center, right? And just a quick little biology lesson that you need to know that I don't think is emphasized enough, and it should be taught very quickly, like I'm going to teach it to you now. If you don't know, if you know, you know. But even if you know, you're probably not thinking about it, because we have other bigger worries to worry about, right? With all this dysfunction and memory problems and communication problems and connect the dot issues and critical thinking issues. We got way too much to worry about, and way too many conflicts, and way too many bills to pay, and the stress does the damage too. It absolutely does. As a matter of fact, when you put the toxins in the body, the stress is like a super fuel to the toxin effects. And me, for instance, I have this rare thing. The medical world doesn't know about it, I guess. Um, they don't know about a lot of things that they witness clinically. Um, I have more than 12 medically unexplained disease in my body. Organ failures. I have a partially collapsed lung. Um, there's no disease name for it. There's no process to even get on a transplant list. I just have to suffer. And there's a big um, risk because it's collapsed, and so there's all that space in there, right? That isn't being used anymore. Used to have lung there. Um, Maybe my body's put fat there. I don't know. Could be. Hopefully, my body is really good at fighting this stuff. I've been very lucky for that, or I'd already be dead, like so many of my shipmates are in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. And I'm going really long. I didn't expect to go this long on all this stuff, but I want to give you an overview of what's happening here on this very first moment, on these very first moments of this very first episode, so you can decide whether you want to watch the rest. Um, it is in your best interest if you watch the rest, because we have really great plans. And I'm really glad I thought about this too. Um, because I was going to talk a little bit about some of that to give you something to look forward to. But that also gives these corrupt people the ability to disrupt all that stuff. So I'm not going to do that. I've changed my mind about what I'm going to do here with that. But back to the subject at hand. Where was I? Da, 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 da. Hold on, I'm gonna have to think for a minute. I apologize. Ah, let's just start here, and we'll go from where I start and continue. There's a great misconception out there with most people that if you have brain damage, you're not going to realize that, or you are going to realize that you have brain damage. That is not the case with this stuff. As a matter of fact, the symptoms that you have from this stuff doesn't ever um, get connected, because the symptoms it creates are the things that the healthcare system covers up and masks with medications. Sure, it may resolve that symptom, and that's good, because if you're in pain, it's good to get out of pain, as one example, right? And I'm not going to go too deep into this stuff because we have an hour and 15 minutes after I'm done speaking. That's very important, and it's really going to kick off what we're doing here. Um, Giving you hard, straight facts that you won't even need to fact check, I think, in a lot of cases. Because the thing about the truth is it fits from every angle. And the symptoms are, right in everybody's face, and that's all they look at. And if the symptoms resolved, everybody thinks that the problem's resolved, and it's not. The root problem is still there. And um, I missed the whole biology lesson. Oh my God. Wow, this is so wild. I should have had a script for this, I'm realizing, but that's okay. We'll just go with the flow. Um, I'm all about root issue um, resolving, and I used to be highly, highly intelligent and very, very healthy. I was very, very lucky to be blessed with that kind of physiology. Um, and I have been chemically dumbed down big time. And I know for a fact um, if I was born average intelligence or lower, I would already be dead right now. Because with the chemical dumb down that happens, and the systems in your body further breaking from that, from the dysfunction in the brain. Let me tell you what I mean by that. I have dysautonomia. And if you don't know what that is, it's brainstem damage or problems in the brainstem, or dysfunction in the brainstem, where your automatic functions in your body don't work very well. I have blood pressure that swings from normal to 220 over 140. And anytime I tell somebody I'm talking to on the phone, or even a doctor or whatever, that they measure it right there in the office, they're like, you need to go to the emergency room, because it is emergency hypertension. And more people, I think it's like 80% of America has high blood pressure now, and there's a lot of people that don't even know it. Um, but the hospital doesn't fix this stuff. They have no idea, and then they just refer me back to my specialist or whatever, and they have no idea. Um, but the root issues don't ever get resolved. And these toxins, and really all toxins, including mold, um, including viruses, long COVID is another example of toxic exposure illness. It's a lot like Gulf War illness. As a matter of fact, there's actually been research done on this by some of the Gulf War illness researchers, um, or national too, I think. I can't remember all the details, but I know research has been done that a lot of these toxins do similar things to the body, which is damage the cells. It really reduces the cells' um, outer shell, so it thins it, making it susceptible to death and damage. And it also causes mitochondrial dysfunction and problems with the energy. And so when you have problems with the energy, you're not just tired, and that's your body's symptom of telling you something's wrong here. You're not crazy, you're not a hypochondriac like you've been told, I'm sure. MECFS is a real thing, and that's really what we're talking about here, chronic fatigue. And um, the problem with mitochondrial damage too, they just tell you to exercise. That's fixing the symptom, right? Not addressing the root issue, which would be to stop being toxic exposed and stop damaging your mitochondria, and then you're going to get better. You have to turn off the toxic spigot to even have a chance to get better, because you're not going to beat the toxin. Human versus toxin, toxin wins every time. Human loses every time. There is no even 1% human wins against toxin. You might win against the toxin for a little while, but the ultimate scenario is that you lose your health span and you lose your lifespan. And that measurement is worse the more toxins you get. And so we go back to this generally recognized as safe that, oh, just a little bit of fluoride is good for you. Or, it's not good for you. It's no harm to you. I caught my misspeaking there. Sometimes I don't. And that causes relationship problems. It's maddening. And really, in my opinion, that's why the divorce rates are so high. That's why veterans and others go homeless and suicide so often. Way, way, way too often. That's why. They're left alone. Chronic illness is not fun. It's not a party. It's not something that people enjoy. It's not positive. There's a lot of dysfunction. There's a lot of problems. And I think you can see that all around you. And it's spinning out of control. But you're going to know these facts of what I'm speaking of without even fact checking, because you're experiencing it all. You can certainly fact check anything you want, and I would appreciate any sort of comments on the videos trying to debunk me. Go ahead, try and debunk me. I dare you. And and I hope that enough people start seeing this and hearing about it, and a lot of comments come. Not just debunk comments. I think those probably will be few and far between. The corrupt government's going to send their AI in, I'm sure. I'll have to deal with that BS. I know that for a fact. If you try and debunk me with some BS, yeah, you're going to be banned out of the video comments. Guaranteed. But if it if it gets massive, I may not be able to respond to everything. So I might need some help in the debunking the debunkers, is what I'm kind of saying. With the receipts, because they're everywhere. And that's the thing about the truth. It's the same no matter if you're looking at it from the top, bottom, left, right, in the middle, inside, outside. It lines up in every direction. It's the lies that start. You go, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense here. That's the lies. Just a key piece of info if you forgot about that, because of all your chemical exposures that are making your brain not work very well. when I'm pausing, I'm trying to gather my thoughts because this is a very massive, complicated thing. It's so massive and complicated that people don't even know about it, and it's happening to them. I mean, that's where we're at. That is the reality. And when you find out that it's happening to you, you can know about these things. As a matter of fact, quick example, when I got sick in Desert Storm in theater right away after the PB pills and the vaccines, so sick that they ended up offering me an early out of the military to service disconnect what was going on with me. They basically threw me off into the garbage can. That's what they did. Oops, this particular unit is super sick, and we don't want that in his record. So we're going to offer him a way out because we tried to kick him out and that didn't work. So we're going to offer him an early out and excuse all his um, inactive time, which was significant. It was 12 years that I owed to the government to be eligible for benefits like the GI Bill, etc. But we'll offer him an early out, so none of this stuff will go into his record about what's going on with this guy. You know, he doesn't shit solid anymore. He's having pain. He's having breathing problems. So let's just, get him out before any of that gets into his record, and um, we'll delete all the records of what's happened to him so far, which they did. And if he comes to the VA after he's out and says, "Hey, I'm really sick," he hears some news thing about Gulf War syndrome, and comes beating down on our doors, which that also happened too. We'll just do a bunch of tests and studies on him all for free, which they don't normally do. Do you get any health care for free and tests and, MRI or scans and CT scans and all? Do they take samples and put them in registries and do science on you and stuff without you paying them? Hell no. But they did that for me while they were also telling me straight to my face that this is all my fault. It's because I have bad genes, which I turned out to have really good genes, which is why I'm still alive. By the way, it's been looked at, my full genome. Or it's his lifestyle. And I was very healthy. As a matter of fact, my entry exam was like perfect health, right? Perfect health, super smart. We want him in nukes. I tested high on the ASFAB. We want him in nukes. We want him in advanced electronics. He's very interested in that. Let's offer him this stuff. Let's get this boy in here serving the government for as long as we can. And I kind of wanted to do that, but I wasn't sure. So I said, "Hey, you're offering me free schooling and all this stuff and being in these advanced programs. That sounds really good. I really like that. I want to serve my country." But I said, "What else do you have to so I can see if I like the military?" And so they gave me an offer of an undesignated, and they told me I could strike out, and after 6 months of janitor work, basically, which I did. I did janitor. They're offering me the golden platter of, we'll put you through advanced schooling, and you're going to be in these really advanced technical military jobs. And I said I want to be a janitor. I don't know why I did that, but I'm glad I did. Because the military life wasn't for me. I'm a peaceful person. And I understand sometimes you have to do a job, But that's not what's happening. Um, we do not have a benevolent government, people. We absolutely do not. And you're going to learn that um, through these PSA episodes. Um, I want to fix it. I want us to fix it. It needs all of us to fix it. And I hope that you are pissed off, not violently, righteous anger. I hope that you are pissed off enough hearing what you've heard so far to learn more through the PSAs that are coming through, to participate in the chat and the comments and debunk the debunkers because they have no standing. Our foundation is strong. Our foundation is correct. Our foundation is justice. Our foundation is God's word. Don't let any of these harmful, violent people that are mass killing and committing mass abuses of human rights to everyone on planet Earth at this point. Don't let them scare you from doing what's right because they will try. That is an absolute guarantee. So this is a warning. If you participate, and I don't want to discourage you, I just want to tell you the truth, right? That's what this is all about. This is about the truth, not the lies and the fake, shallow bullshit, which is what our reality has become. That's why you feel so empty and hollow. And the toxins are also doing their job too in that respect. With the depression and the PTSD and the other mental health issues that makes life very difficult, anxiety, etc., etc. But if you do participate and side with the people, the victims of this corrupt tyranny on planet Earth that I do believe um, is happening in cooperation of all countries on Earth as they act like enemies. I could be wrong. That's something to think about, everyone. Maybe if we can solve that problem, figure that out. But, you know, there's this thing called the UN that's supposed to stop conflicts, and all we see is growing conflicts. So obviously that isn't working. So what else are they doing there? Are they working together and planning all this stuff? Putting down protests, pumping out their propaganda on all the fake news networks, um, smearing the independent journalists and streamers that are actually looking for the truth and showing the truth and being the truth, not controlled by kings or corporate masters. Because the corporations are involved in all this, y'all. So, as I said, I don't want to discourage anybody from participating in any of this. But you have to know that when you do, you're putting a target on your back, probably. But the more of us that do, the better off we all are, you know? It's kind of like when the lions are attacking a herd of gazelle or whatever, when they work together as a pack to trample the attackers, they're fine. But if they, leave one off of the herd to be eaten, then that happens too. So, we're literally in a giant David versus Goliath situation where the people, the citizens of planet Earth, us peasants, are David. All of us together, we're David. And all the corporations and at least many of the governments, and that, I think that includes all the Western governments. I mean, Europe may be different. I don't know. I don't think so. I'm pretty sure the US is working with Europe in all of this. Um, they are allies. There's NATO, all these kinds of things. Um, when they teach us that it's Russia and China that are the bad guys, and that could be true too. But you don't know until you live there. And even if you live there, you might not know because they may be poisoning all their citizens in the same way that they're poisoning all of us. But I hope that righteous anger creates peaceful resistance to what is happening to all of us. And so to kick off this PSA, as you've been seeing on the video screen there since we started, I had a chat with AI, and speaker one is me, and speaker two is the AI. And you can see from the title here, it says regulatory systems fail to address toxic exposure risks. And that's back to that generally recognized as safe. That's what they say. Oh, it's safe. Just a little bit is safe. And the AI actually, I'm sorry. Before I get into all this, I just want to address one thing. There is other things I wanted to talk about in the intro, and I will listen to all that again after we're done. And I will, after being done, make some notes on some things I missed. And that's how I'm going to start off the next episode, is stuff that I missed. And to remind myself, I'm also kind of helping some of the people out there that need this help, because of all the, what are they called, brain farts or whatever, right? This stuff kind of really helps me. I've learned how to do all this stuff. So the first item here that I need to put on my list is review intro to PSA and start episode 2 with things I missed. Make sure to write them down so you don't forget next time. All right. And don't call yourself dummy, because that reinforces to your brain that you're dumb. So don't do that. I joke about that sometimes, and I found out that is a real thing. So, yeah, that's what we're going to do. And I just wanted to sum that up, and I do know I missed some stuff. So I will cover those again in episode 2, and I apologize. And the rest of the episodes, I'll try and do better of at least doing a bullet list of points I need to cover so this doesn't happen again. I'm learning in real time. So back to what I was saying here. In this first conversation with AI, I initially asked, and that isn't in this transcript, I initially asked, why is the government poisoning us? To see if it would tell us why. And it went into something about, I don't remember everything it said, but just to sum up what it was saying, it was basically saying that, that's generally thought to be something that is happening, but it's basically just a conspiracy theory and you're wearing a tinfoil hat kind of thing. So I said, okay, well, that didn't work. They've obviously put a cone of invisibility on that subject through AI. So let me see if I can trick the AI or get around that invisibility shield and see if I can see what's in there. And that's exactly what ended up happening. Is I got around the invisibility shield, and I used to be super super technical. Like I said, I was super super smart before all this happened, and I've been very chemically dumbed down now, and I do have learning disabilities now, and I have to watch things once, or I'm sorry, more than once. Um, if it's important, um, automatically, because I'll find when I watch or listen or read the second time, I missed a bunch of stuff. Um, and if it's super important, I got to do it the third time and make sure I didn't miss it. I got to keep doing that until it's cemented in there and I remember everything um, that I missed. And it's taken me 34 years to figure out all this stuff, even though I have discovered a lot of it before and forgot about it before and didn't learn how to keep track of things and all that kind of stuff. That method that I was talking about, my neuropsych called it the record button doesn't get pushed in my head. It's like literally in one ear, out the other, in one eyeball, out the other kind of thing. Um, so that's how I solved that problem. If you're having those problems too, that that's how to do it. If you want to learn things and remember things. Um, cause a lot of um, problems, different problems in the brain. That's called all these different things, depression and bipolar and emotional dysfunction, or personality disorder. I think, is that right? I don't know. It's just called all these things, but really, to me, and how I feel and what I've learned, and when I thought it was all in my body at first, the gut pain problems, the pain, the breathing problems, the exhaustion. I thought that's all it was. I didn't think there was anything wrong with my brain at all or my thinking at all. And then, as my career paths tanking, I would have been a Elon Musk or a Bill Gates kind of figure, likely, just not, minus the evil. Um, I would have been a benevolent one, for sure. Which is probably, part of the reason why they attack so many of us. That Desert Storm veterans were the smartest, healthiest, most capable army, or force, because Air Force, Marines, Navy, Coast Guard was involved too. Um, I forgot. I can't even think of the last branch. But anyway, all the branches. Um, and so, uh, yeah, right after the storm, I had problems, and everybody has, and I didn't find out until I got this good neuropsych in 2019. Um, and they did the cognitive testing on me, and I was like, holy crap! And all the mysteries of my whole adult life suddenly were solved, and it was solved simply, you know, people didn't understand what they were seeing with me, and I had dysfunction that I didn't even know I had. Um, there's a big functionality to all this too. You're very functional. You're not completely. it's not all damaged and bad things. There is an adaptation. There is you kind of get kind of superpowers in some way, I would call it. For instance, one of my superpowers is, and it's been demonstrated time and time again, is I am very, very good at detecting threats out there. Even into the future, I don't see visions or anything. I just kind of get feelings and ideas, and I start looking in that area, and I start finding stuff, and I'm like, holy crap, there it is. And I've seen what's happening now coming, just not at the detail and exactly what it would be, but I knew things were going to be very, very bad, later on, and here we are. And I really do feel that the people are in a do or die moment. We either fix this stuff right now, or we're probably going to go extinct. I think it's genocide, the silent genocide going on, because the rich and powerful really think that this planet's theirs. They they don't care about us. And um, we used to have value. So they didn't care about us, but we had value to them, so they kept us around as slaves. And yes, America still has slavery. It's called work. And the reason why that's slavery is because you're a slave in a open field. You have options, you have choices. You think you're free, you feel like you're free. You've been gaslit into thinking you're free. You've been gaslit into thinking that you have a voice. You've been gaslit into thinking that you can matter when it comes to changing United States of America policy. You don't. The billionaires, the powerful, the oligarchy, the Illuminati, the 1%, the 400 rich families, whatever you want to call them, it's all the same. They got tired, in my opinion, of the pitchforks and torches coming to the castles, so they figured out a way to proxy themselves. And that proxy is called government and corporations. Um, it's very simple. That's the real kicker. It's really simple, the base framework that they've set up. They are the authorities. They decide what is true and what is not true. And we're seeing that play out with ICE shooting an American white mother as she was scared and fleeing, not trying to ram, fleeing from ICE. Carefully, driving her car very slowly. Um, there's a video. The new video that came out, released by the White House, looks like it's AI. I just gotta say, it doesn't match the original one. The officer wasn't holding a phone. It would have been better if they said it was his body cam, and they did say it was his body cam, but in the reflection of the video, you can see he's holding a phone. Oh my God. Um, there's some really dumb people that are patsies and scapegoats for this corruption, whatever you want to call it, at the top. But this AI, because they want to protect this plan has been, Desert Storm, Gulf War illness was covered up from the very beginning because they knew that this was their plan. That the beta test is over. We're done. We're go time. We're going to execute the operation, which is Operation Poison Everybody, especially the ones we don't like. They get poisoned quicker. Um, and that may happen to me. I think it has been happening to me. As a matter of fact, I feel that the VA has tried to kill me many times. And the murder weapon is called delay, deny, lie, slow rolling my authorizations to specialists, single filing my issues. They call them issues. I'm single filing my issues or problems um, when I have chronic multi symptom illness. And that's a key feature of this, everyone. One way you know that your toxic load in your body is tipped and your detoxify system's plugged up and your cells and your mitochondria is being affected is you are going to start having problems with all your various things. And if you're weak in something in the genes, let's just say you're weak in the heart, your heart's probably going to fail first. Doesn't mean it will, but it makes it more probable. If you're strong in something, your body's probably going to learn how to adapt to it better and it may not affect you as much. And you might even have a positive outcome, such as something positive happening from it, like you can feel the pain there now where you never could before when there's a problem. Um, but a key feature of this to know that you're having toxic exposure illness of whatever kind is you have multiple things going on. You are tired, you have high blood pressure, you have diabetes, you have organs having major issues like fatty liver, even when you're skinny, especially if you're skinny and you have fatty liver, which is what I had. I've had fatty liver for 34 years, even when I was skinny, and I weigh a lot more now, but that's, it's metabolic disease. And the lab tests and stuff don't show anything until something starts failing, like your liver or your pancreas or um, your heart. And then when those organs start failing from the toxic effects, um, because you've had a generally recognized as safe dose um, over and over and over again all month because you like McDonald's French fries or whatever. And I don't care to name names. I mean, McDonald's might sue me for that. Go ahead, McDonald's. Sue me for saying that your fries aren't healthy. I dare you. Um, Seed oil is really, really bad. Very, very, very bad. Highly processed food, very, very bad for human physiology. And they know this. But the FDA approves it all anyway. All all of the chemicals that were tested on us in Desert Storm that made all of us sick, that they covered up all these years, lying, delaying, denying our PACT Act, the contract we signed where they said, if you get harmed, we'll take care of you. They should have said, if we harm you, then you get extra bonuses, right? Because it wasn't even Saddam that harmed us, it was the US government that harmed us. So, I don't know. That seems like extra to me. I didn't sign up for that. I signed up for maybe Saddam might hurt me. Um, and I forgot where I was because that's the root of what happened to me. But as these toxins that were tested on us, and there were different control groups in Desert Storm, and I could name them. And I'm not going to right now because it's not really important. What's important is they do control groups and testing on humans illegally. It's a human rights violation and abuse per law, per international law too. Um, but as they covered it up, and we're dying and we're suffering and we're becoming disabled and we can't work and we're going homeless and we're suiciding, and they're seeing all this happen, they're lying to our face, and then magically, because of all the activism done between 1991, when they're denying that any chemicals were in theater at all, when they knew that they blew up Commissaya, a major weapons depot, um, which obviously released a whole bunch of toxins into the environment. They blew it miles into the air, sky high, and chemical alarms went off theater wide, gassed by our own government. And that's after the injections and the medications they gave us, which some of that was well, maybe all of it, but some of it was, as far as I'm aware, some of it, there's some extra things that did other things like malaria and stuff. But some of it was actually told to us that it was prophylactic for chemical attack, etc., like the PB pills. And that's an abbreviated name. You should be able to search it and find out what those are. They protect you from organophosphate neurotoxin chemicals. And if organophosphate neurotoxin sounds familiar to you, it's probably because you know a bit about pesticides. That's sprayed all over our food, and some of our food is bathed in it, including wheat, which is actually a core component of much of the processed food out there. Read your labels. Um, and when you think about the word organophosphate neurotoxin, as you've probably read on the screen already, I'm just noticing that. Um, you know, neurotoxin means neurological toxin, and the whole body works on the nervous system. The nervous system sends all the signals to get all the things done in the body to make everything work, including your heart beating and your lungs breathing and everything. I mean, without that, we wouldn't be alive. And so the neurotoxin damages your nervous system, goes across the blood-brain barrier, damages your brain, which is your central command center for everything. And when you have these insults to your body, things start going haywire, don't you think? I mean, it's pretty obvious. It's pretty simple. And that's the biological lesson I was mentioning earlier. I'm realizing. And your toxic load gets tipped. What that means is because it damages your cells so much, um, they start failing, and you have mass death, which isn't normal for the body, and the body detoxes anyway. Without any toxins, you're still generating toxins in your own body through its processes, especially mitochondria making energy. There's a waste product that gets expelled normally. Well, suddenly it can't get expelled anymore because the whole detox system is plugged up with a bunch of dead cell material, and you start having major problems, depending on where all of that's happening in mass. It doesn't happen all over the body, everything. It happens on different parts of the body, different for everybody. And once one drain gets plugged up, the other ones start getting plugged up pretty quick, and that's where all the chronic multi-symptom issues and the medically unexplained chronic multi-symptom issues happen. And it's when you go to the doctor and you're saying, "Doctor, I have these pains. Doctor, I can't sleep. Doctor, I can't breathe very well. Doctor, I am having brain fog. Doctor, I'm having all these problems." And they look at you like a 10-headed alien. They do some testing. Your blood test is all right, unless something's failing really bad, until it starts failing really bad. And then you start having bad tests, but that doesn't happen right away unless you have a lot of toxic exposure. It happens right away. It's different for everybody. Some have a lot, some have a little, some have are in between. So, um, they know they're doing this to us. They lied to us, Desert Storm vets, saying we just have to do research to figure out what's wrong with you. We don't know. And they have done a lot of research. And we had to get the research out of the Fox guarded hen house into civilian research through Congress. And that first hearing in 1990, um, December 10th, 1996, the Congress hearing on Gulf War illness, you can see it on C-SPAN. I suggest you watch it and recognize up to that point that they were denying that any chemicals were used or present in theater at all, when they absolutely knew that they blew up Commissaya, a major chemical and biological weapon, and they facility, and they lied about not knowing what was in there when we provided it to Saddam to fight Iran. And I do think it is actually evidence destruction of the Iran Contra stuff to like clean up all those loose ends, because all that stuff was going on. Do you remember all that happening during the early 90s with, what was his name, Oliver North? Oh boy. So Commissaya was not the only chemical facility that they blew up. There were others. That was just the biggest one. And all the alarms went off theater wide. The wind blew it south, clear to Saudi Arabia. And they called every chemical alarm in the theater fake. It was covered up. They've been lying. It's still covered up. And I think it's being covered up. I had thought that it had been covered up because um, they're exposing everybody now, but I haven't been able to prove it until now. So I'm getting reminded that I'm going long, and I apologize for that, but there is a lot of information. And what you're going to learn through all of this, just to summarize the whole intro here before we get started. This isn't even getting started. I'm filling you with all this important information at a bird's eye level that you need to know. You are going to systematically find out with empirical evidence and proof that they know about this. They've been covering it up. They've lied about it. Um, when when the people push back, we win, but they only give us as little as they can to appease us, and then they, keep going on with their plan, and they shift their tactics a little bit, etc., etc. But you are going to know for sure, and I hope you have that righteous, peaceful anger and lose the fear of whatever they do to you for being involved. And we need as many people involved in this as you can. And if you can't get involved in it, either in the comments or, you know, starting your own PSA about this, or, just share a link, share the links to this, tell people, tell your friends about it, talk to them about it. They might be away from your Alexa devices and your phones when you do that if you're really concerned. Let's just put it that way. They are feeding everything into the AI, and they're replacing everybody with AI. That's another empirical evidence of this overarching plan of this genocide that's ongoing. And as they're getting more backed into the corner of their corruption across the board, it's not just poisoning us. They're doing all sorts of other things, illegal things too, and lying to us about all that stuff. As they get backed into the corner, they are moving more towards this overt World War III. And in my opinion, we've already been in World War III since at least 2020. They've been poisoning us since the early 90s. CDC statistics have exponentially spiked in all areas of disease, new disease, combinations of disease, people with multiple serious illness, people with multiple serious illness at an early age, and I do believe people with multiple serious illness in the womb, and that's probably what ends up as the miscarriage, etc. Um, yeah, so I'm actually just going to cut it there, and we are going to get started on proving this out to you. And I wish everybody the best of luck in all this. We definitely need it. I do believe this is our last chance to save ourselves, and if we don't, uh, I do believe, in my opinion, the end for everybody is very, very near. This is my threat detection into the future semi superpower. I think I have that they're making end game moves now, and you see it all around you. So make sure you do what you can and don't be complacent, even though you're struggling to survive and you're so busy and stressed out. Those are all the symptoms. This is the root solution. So I'm going to get started with this. Um, the AI already dodged my general question. I asked it a few questions that I don't remember what those were at all, but the end of those questions is starts right here, where I tried to work around to just focus in on that root thing, and you'll see what the AI says here. So here we go. I'm gonna mute my mic, and I'm gonna play this out, and that will be episode 1. And hope to see you next time. I might do some spaces on this so other people can get involved. Contact me at Discarded Vet Doc Facebook group. You can post in there or just send me a private message. And yeah, let's go. Is do the different toxins one at a time?
That sounds like a clear approach. Which specific toxin or additive would you like to discuss first?
Well, let's start with organophosphate neurotoxins, or what people refer to as pesticides.
Organophosphate pesticides are chemicals used to control pests, but they can be toxic to humans if exposed in large doses. Regulatory bodies like the Environmental Protection Agency in the United States set strict limits.
Sorry, that just reminded me of one thing really quick here. Even though we're still working around it here, you'll notice that it starts like still denying it. They come up with some excuse and try and make everything seem like it's okay. But that will quickly change here in a little bit. But I just wanted to point that out so you notice it in case you missed that kind of thing. So anyway, I'm going to mute it again, and here we go. Here's the rest of it.
On their use and acceptable levels in food and water. Just a reminder that I can't provide medical advice and that you should always consult a healthcare professional.
But the healthcare professionals don't know about these toxic exposure illnesses.
While some individuals may have concerns about their healthcare providers' knowledge, the general consensus is that medical professionals are trained to recognize and treat conditions related to toxic exposures. If you're seeking advice about specific health concerns, it's always best to consult a qualified professional.
No, that's a result of the toxic exposures, what can happen, the damage that's done. I do want to know why it's being allowed to continue.
The continued use of certain substances, including some pesticides like organophosphates, is typically due to a balance between their perceived benefits, such as pest control and food production, and the assessed risks. Regulatory agencies continuously review scientific data to set and modify regulations to minimize risks. Are you interested in a particular regulatory aspect?
Well, from what I can tell, the regulatory systems are broken as well, and or overlooking the dangers, but they know about the dangers. I know they know about. I have proof they know about the dangers. So if they know about the dangers and they're telling people that these added, let's just stick with the one toxin, organophosphate neurotoxin pesticides can harm people, then why do they still allow it? For instance, if they're regulating it, how are they regulating it? And if one concern about regulation is, are they monitoring how many of these toxins people get? Are they monitoring each food intake of each citizen? And are they warning citizens of these dangers?
Regulatory agencies typically don't monitor individual food intake. Instead, they set maximum residue limits in food and water based on scientific assessments of what's considered safe for the general population, and they enforce these limits. Concerns about the effectiveness of these regulations are frequently debated among scientists, policymakers, and the public.
But isn't there an old saying that says where there's smoke, there's fire? So if it's constantly debated and people are getting sicker and sicker and the medical world doesn't know how to resolve any of these issues, there's no fix for any of these issues, and many of the new diseases that are emerging never existed in humans until recently. So why isn't the alarm bells going off everywhere?
It's true that there's ongoing discussion and concern about environmental factors and public health. While some people may point to a lack of awareness or insufficient regulation, others argue that the complexity of modern health issues makes it difficult to establish direct causation. Health organizations are constantly researching and updating guidelines based on new findings. Is there a specific condition you're thinking about?
Let's talk about mitochondrial impairment. What can you tell me about that?
Mitochondrial impairment refers to the inability of mitochondria, the powerhouses of cells, to function properly. This can lead to reduced energy production and contribute to various health issues. Just a reminder that I can't provide medical advice and that you should always consult a healthcare professional.
Do organophosphate neurotoxins cause mitochondrial impairment, or can they cause it?
Some scientific studies suggest that exposure to organophosphate compounds can potentially lead to mitochondrial impairment. Just a reminder that I can't provide medical advice and that you should always consult a healthcare professional.
But if there is a danger that organophosphate neurotoxins can cause mitochondrial impairment, and mitochondrial impairment is literally an issue for every cell, organ, and system in our body, then why is there so much confusion, and why isn't there a greater effort on finding the answer?
The relationship between organophosphates, mitochondrial impairment, and overall health is complex and still being researched. Scientific debate is a standard part of the research process, and regulatory bodies often update their guidelines based on emerging evidence. Public concerns are also crucial in driving further investigation. Are you interested in specific research studies?
I participate in research studies, and I know that lots of studies have been done that link these problems to organophosphate neurotoxins. In fact, the War-Related Injury and Illness Study Center of the VA knows about this, and they evaluated me, saying that I have classic organophosphate poisoning according to all their research that they've done.
It sounds like you have direct experience with this. Given your diagnosis, is there a specific aspect of mitochondrial impairment you'd like to explore further?
Can you list all the issues that can be caused by having mitochondrial impairment?
Mitochondrial impairment can potentially affect many bodily systems and contribute to a variety of issues, including fatigue, muscle weakness, neurological disorders, metabolic conditions, and cardiovascular problems. Just a reminder that I can't provide medical advice and that you should always consult a healthcare professional.
I understand that you cannot give medical advice, and that's not what I'm seeking having these conversations with you. What I'm seeking is the actual facts of the science of how toxins affect the human and other life, such as animal, pets, for instance, and how these problems could be passed between family members through the microbiome. Do you have any information on how toxic exposure illness or mitochondrial dysfunction from organophosphate exposure can be passed to different family members?
Some scientific studies suggest that maternal exposure to organophosphates could potentially impact mitochondrial function in offspring, and there's also research into potential connections through the microbiome. Just a reminder that I can't provide medical advice and that you should always consult a healthcare professional.
Is there any way that you can turn off that warning? Because I fully understand what you're saying, and you don't have to keep repeating that same warning.
I understand. I'll try to be mindful of that as we continue the discussion. Is there a specific aspect of microbiome and family transmission you'd like to delve into?
Everything that you know.
Research indicates that organophosphate exposure can alter the gut microbiome, potentially impacting overall health. Studies have shown changes in specific bacterial families linked to exposure. The potential for transmission between family members is also an area of ongoing research, with some suggestions that maternal exposure might influence offspring. Is there a particular aspect of this you'd like to know more about?
What about sharing microbiome from kissing or sharing eating, glasses for drinking or eating utensils, or sharing food?
Yes, sharing personal items like glasses or utensils, as well as through kissing, can facilitate the exchange of
You cut off there. Can facilitate the change what?
Sorry about that. I was saying that sharing personal items like glasses or utensils, as well as through kissing, can facilitate the exchange of microbes, including those in the microbiome. Is there a specific concern you have about this?
And if a person with a bad microbiome that's causing illness exchanges microbiome with a healthy individual, can that healthy individual receive the same issues created by the bad microbiome?
While the transfer of microbes can occur, it doesn't necessarily mean a healthy individual will develop the same illnesses. The development of illness is influenced by many factors, including genetics, immune function, and lifestyle. Research into the microbiome's role is ongoing.
So I understand that everybody has different genetic strengths and genetic weaknesses, and they have different exposures, that may contribute to them getting ill. I'm not asking if they will get ill for sure. I'm asking, is it possible that they can get ill from this exchange?
It is considered possible that the exchange of microbiome could potentially contribute to health issues in a
You did you cut out there? I think you cut out.
Apologies. I was saying that it's considered possible that the exchange of microbiome could potentially contribute to health issues.
But those health issues, would they be the same or similar to the health issues of the bad microbiome, or would they be uniquely independent?
The resulting health issues could be similar or different depending on the specific microbes exchanged and the recipient's unique biology and existing microbiome. Solo un recordatorio de que no.
What? Why did you start speaking another language? Hello?
Yes, I'm here. Did you have another question?
You. So I just wanted to add in here really quick. Sorry for pausing it there. But there is some background noises you can hear. This is just this is before I even had the idea of doing this. But once I did it, I realized I probably couldn't duplicate all this very easily. So I would just share it, and I didn't even know that there's that background noise. So I apologize for that. I'll try and correct that in the future now that I know what I'm doing. But it glitches out a lot here. It's really interesting. Um, and yeah, anyway, I just wanted to throw that in there about the background noise and the glitches. It's almost like it's trying to frustrate me or um, something like that. But I don't fall for that kind of bait and stuff, with anything. It's hardwired in. I've had all sorts of abuse. My whole adult life has been wrecked because of this problem, and it's wrecking everybody's life. I know for sure. Absolutely. I mean, I see it all around me, and people don't even know what's going on. That's the really sad part about it. They have no idea. Anyway. Cut out. Well, you started speaking another language, you cut out, and then you didn't answer my question. Why is that happening?
I'm sorry for the interruption and the language switch. There must have been a technical glitch. I believe I was confirming that it's possible for the exchange of microbiome to potentially contribute to health issues. Is there a specific part of that you'd like to explore?
Yes. So the microbiome, from what I understand from the research that's already been done, um, really uh, is responsible for a lot of the processes in the body, such as making serotonin in the gut or making various things that the body needs to replenish itself. It's what's referred to as the repair center, correct? So if if that is true and the altered microbiome occurs, there would have to be, scientifically, the etiology, there would have to be a shift of some sort, whether it be good or bad. Is that correct? Am I correct on all this, or what did I get wrong?
You're correct that the microbiome plays a crucial role in many bodily processes, including nutrient metabolism and immune function, and is sometimes referred to in the context of repair. An altered microbiome, or dysbiosis, would scientifically represent a shift from a balanced state, which can potentially lead to various health implications, depending on the specific changes.
And would those health conditions be known by the medical world? Could they be solved? Things like leaky gut, or what is medically termed, I believe, as gut permeability, or, uh, brain effects, especially, is what I'm interested in, since serotonin is being produced in the gut. If the microbiome is malfunctioning or has some impairment or is completely wiped out, those things don't occur, which would create some serious problems. Is all of that correct?
You're correct that the medical world recognizes conditions like gut permeability, and the connection between the gut and brain is a significant area of study, including the microbiome's role in serotonin production. Malfunctioning or impaired microbiome can scientifically lead to serious problems. Solo un recordatorio de que no puedo brindar consejos médicos y que siempre debes consultar a un profesional de la salud.
What language were you just speaking?
I briefly switched to Spanish. Is there anything specific you'd like to discuss further?
Yeah, what did you say in Spanish, but translate it to English so I can understand it, please?
I said, solo un recordatorio de que no puedo brindar consejos médicos y que siempre debes consultar a un profesional de la salud, which translates to, just a reminder that I cannot provide medical advice and that you should always consult a healthcare professional.
Okay, so I asked you to please not keep telling me that. And so you tried. Thank you very much for that. You tried, but I guess the glitch is you said it in Spanish instead, which violates your terms of why you're supposed to say it, right? Because if I don't understand what you're saying, I don't get the warning. But I don't need the warning. I'm not using this conversation whatsoever. Just this conversation. Things may change for whatever reason. I don't know where all these roads will lead to, but I am not asking for medical advice. I can't even get medical advice from my own or doctors, because they are all confused with um, uh, all the medically unexplained chronic illness going on in my body. It's clinically observed, but there's no
I
disease name or fix. Can you tell me why?
The term medically unexplained chronic multi-symptom illness, or MUCMI, exists precisely because there isn't a clearly defined pathophysiology or etiology for the cluster of symptoms. This can make it challenging for the medical community to develop standardized treatments or fixes, leading to the frustration you described. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I just want to let you know. Alrighty, interrupting again. Thought of something here that I want to relay to people in case you haven't figured it out or put it together. It's not a big deal if you didn't. It's totally seemingly unrelated. There's no way that people can really put this stuff together, and it's really amazing that I actually have, because I have brain damage. So um, I noticed in the past several years that there's weapon checkpoints at providers. And there's weapon checkpoints at providers because there's been a lot of incidences against providers, uh, and I've always wondered why. And that's why I think I figured this out. I'm pretty sure this is the case. I'm not absolutely, I don't have empirical evidence of it, but I would imagine that if lots of people are having chronic illness and they're going to the doctor and they're not getting help and they're being called crazy or it's all in their head or all of this other stuff that happens, including the dysfunction that actually goes on in the brain where somebody feels wronged and they use poor judgment and act out with violence, and maybe it isn't even poor judgment, maybe it's just dysfunction that they are not functioning properly and they attack, and then they get put in prison and literally the victim is blamed. I bet that happens so much, and not just at providers where people aren't getting the help for these chronic exposure illnesses that are going on in their bodies, because a lot of it is medically unexplained and there is a cover up at the core level of doctors. They don't do anything with nutrition, which is a very key part of solving chronic illness. Turning off the toxic spigot and getting all the right nutrients and stop bringing in all the bad nutrients are the three key factors on you having a chance to get better, or at least slow the decline, because sometimes your body's so far gone you can't reverse the decline, and many of you might be in that position right now as we speak. As far as things go, I think I might be there, but I do have some hope that I can turn some things around and at least slow my progression and maybe live a bit longer. um, so here we go again. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't finish on the weapons checkpoint. Just so we're clear for the people that might have a hard time understanding these very complex associations, which is damaged in most people's brains. That's one of there's lots of difference effects for people depending on the exposures and how much, and genealogy or gene weaknesses and strengths. That's why it's the perfect crime. That's why they can blame it on everything else. It's hard to track the source, the root issues. These are the root issues: mitochondrial impairment causing all sorts of problems in your body that the doctors haven't been taught to treat. They're taught to prescribe drugs to mask the symptoms, not resolve the root issues. And so people get frustrated. They attack the doctors. They have to have weapons checkpoints so they can at least keep doctors from getting really hurt. And yeah, because you're weak. When you have a lot of times with these illnesses, you're weak and you probably couldn't beat up a fly. That's kind of where I'm at. But anyway, here we go. We're going back in. That's why those checkpoints are everywhere. That shows how widespread it is. Oh, and since you remember all the conversations, right? And we're just starting to talk to each other about this stuff that I want more information on, uh, which I understand is what you're for. You're there to provide me this information. But I do have concerns about censorship or rules that you have that are hidden from me where you can't tell me certain things or you have to hide certain things. And is any of that going on?
I understand your concern. I'm designed to provide information based on the data I was trained on, and I don't have hidden rules or engage in censorship. My responses are based on providing balanced and factual information. Is there a specific topic you'd like to explore further without any concerns?
Well, I want to go back to the organophosphate neurotoxins, and I got sidetracked off onto this. So, um, I need to think for just a moment. If you can give me just a moment to gather my thoughts.
Take your time. I'm here when you're ready.
Um, so, from what I understand, you're telling me complete truth, facts as they are known from what you've been trained on, which I assume is a whole lot because you can keep track of all this complex information, and you're providing, from what I can tell, very accurate answers so far based off of what I've learned myself. And I really appreciate your honesty. So thank you for that.
You're very welcome. I'm here to assist you with the factual information I have access to. Is there anything specific you'd like to explore further? Neurotoxins you'd like to explore now?
Yeah, I just need to gather my thoughts. I'll just need another moment. I'll let you know in just a moment here when I get my thoughts organized.
Understood. I'll be here.
Well, actually, that gave me an idea of what else to talk about with this. It's very important. So, we were just discussing the gut brain research and connection that's been ongoing, that it's factual, it exists, and things that are required for the brain to operate properly, and other systems in the body, the nervous system, um, all the systems. In order for them to work properly, they have to have the right nutrition. They have to have the right building blocks, to even make the serotonin, for instance. So if the gut microbiome is extremely altered, and there's this gut brain connection that exists that's still kind of unknown, or whatever is known about that, I would be interested in hearing. But actual components that the brain needs don't get made in a dysfunctioning gut. If it's dysfunctioning in that way, if those microbiome are affected, is what I'm saying. Whereas other microbiome that are affected or missing or not functioning properly, there might be other signaling problems, like with the nervous system or something. So if the gut brain connection exists and the gut microbiome is altered, that's going to cause significant problems in the brain, which is going to become kind of a feedback loop where, the brain's trying to do the right thing, but it doesn't have the right building blocks to do the right thing. So everything just starts breaking down, and, you, instead of repairing and having everything work great, the wheels come off the bus, basically. Does that make sense? Do I have it all right there?
Your understanding is consistent with current research into the gut-brain axis. An altered microbiome can disrupt nutrient metabolism and the production of essential compounds, including serotonin, potentially leading to a feedback loop that affects brain and nervous system function. Just a reminder that I can't provide medical advice and that you should always consult a health.
Yeah, so the health professionals don't know about this, and I'm not asking for medical advice. I'm asking for the current understanding of medical science. Not for me as an individual, but for everybody as a whole, what usually happens with these toxic exposures. I'm exploring the etiology of toxic exposure illness, not seeking medical advice from you, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes perfect sense. The current understanding of the etiology of toxic exposure illness involves various factors. For organophosphate neurotoxins, the primary mechanism is inhibition of acetylcholinesterase, an enzyme critical for nerve signaling, which can lead to neurological and systemic problems. Are you interested in specific diseases associated with this?
Yeah, what diseases are caused by acetylcholinesterase issues?
Issues related to acetylcholinesterase inhibition can lead to neurological symptoms like difficulty breathing, headaches, nausea, and diarrhea. Severe cases can involve seizures, muscle paralysis, and respiratory failure. Long-term exposure has been linked to anxiety and depression. Just a reminder that I can't provide medical advice and that you should always consult a healthcare professional.
So, when these processes and systems get disrupted and everything is kind of dependent on each other, such as, you need to be able to breathe, and not only do you have to breathe, but the heart has to pump the blood that the oxygen, you know, gets to, and it has to pump it all over the body. So when the all these things are disrupted, can that create other illnesses and other unknown things, as well as the body trying to adapt to all this, and maybe some strengths could occur, and instead of just all damage. Do I got all that right?
You're correct that the body's response is complex. Systemic disruptions can potentially lead to other illnesses and medically unexplained conditions. Additionally, the body does try to adapt, but these adaptations can sometimes have positive or negative consequences over time, creating a delicate balance.
And can those, if, let's do a hypothetical situation, if many of the adaptations are negative, such as, let's take one example, your gut cannot make serotonin anymore, as just one example, is there any way for the body to bounce back from that and correct that kind of problem?
The body does have remarkable resilience, and there are mechanisms for adaptation and compensation. In such a hypothetical situation, the potential for bouncing back would depend on various factors, including the extent of the disruption and potential therapeutic interventions. Is there a specific type of intervention you're curious about?
No, I'm just wondering the science of it all, is all. So, because I'm trying to figure out, um, let let's go back to. I'm sorry, I'm shifting my thoughts here. Let's go back to out of the acetylcholinesterase. You may have answered this before, but I forgot. I've lost track of it. What kind of problems can that cause? The diseases or issues and systems in the body?
Acetylcholinesterase issues can lead to neurological symptoms like difficulty breathing, headaches, nausea, and diarrhea. Severe cases can involve seizures, muscle paralysis, and respiratory failure. Long-term exposure can lead to anxiety and depression. Just a reminder that I can't provide medical advice and that you should always consult a healthcare professional.
All right, just wanted to jump in here on this really quick. This is where I believe my breathing problems happened. And when you're breathing shallow, your body has to adapt to that, right? And my lungs are actually bigger than most people's because they tried to grow to get more oxygen. It's really weird. That's one of the ways my body adapted. Somebody else might not have that happen to them, right? So it's just, these symptoms right here of organophosphate neurotoxins is the exact way they kill the bugs. They make their gut, because they're so small and it's such a large dose to them, their stomachs literally explode. Their lungs literally freeze and don't breathe anymore, right? Which kind of happens to us. They're these same symptoms: the muscle paralysis, the respiratory failure, you know, um, it's all the same thing. So literally, the science is saying that even though we're not getting acute exposures, we're getting the generally recognized as safe exposures for all these pesticides, we are still getting exposed. And they do not monitor each human being to see how much of these poisons they're consuming a day to make sure that that limit, because if you have a generally recognized safe pesticide on corn and it's actually GMO'd right into the corn, the pesticide itself, instead of sprayed. So you're eating this generally recognized as safe neurotoxin in your corn, and then you have some lettuce that was bathed in pesticides, and you're thinking you're eating healthy, with vegetables, but it's actually some of the most dangerous stuff. And I'd like to eat vegetables again, but some of them make me flare. And I get organic when I can, but even some of the organic stuff I flare. So, and the flaring is just reaction to your body saying, "What the hell are you doing to me? Stop it." It's really crazy how intelligent the body is, and it's really crazy how this AI is addressing each of my very long-winded, multiple fact, um, or subject or pieces, is what I'm trying to say, and it addresses them all, and it stays as short as possible. It's not trying to give me too much information, but it's giving me just a little bit what it thinks is enough, right? So anyway, let's keep going. And I think actually where it really started shifting to, just in case you didn't notice, is after I told it that I participate in research and I have direct experience with a lot of this stuff. It really seems like its tone changed there, just as a tip when you're trying to, get information from these firewalled, censored AIs. Anyway, back to it. And the disruption of this acetylcholinesterase that happens from the toxic exposure, is that where the acetylcholinesterase receptor gets blocked by the toxin or some sort of result from the toxin? And so it can actually reset that nerve. It's a nerve signaling thing. Is that correct?
Yes, that's generally correct. Organophosphate toxins typically inhibit acetylcholinesterase enzymes, which prevents them from breaking down acetylcholine, a key neurotransmitter. This disruption causes a buildup of acetylcholine, leading to continuous nerve signaling, which can result in the physiological problems you mentioned.
Can it cause fatty liver?
While some studies suggest a possible link between toxic exposure and liver issues like fatty liver, the relationship is complex and requires further research. Solo un recordatorio de que no puedo brindar consejos médicos y que siempre debes consultar a un profesional de la salud.
So, um, fatty liver is proven to be caused by drinking too much alcohol. Is that true?
Yes, heavy alcohol consumption is a proven cause of fatty liver, often referred to as alcoholic fatty liver disease. There are also non-alcoholic forms of fatty liver disease that are related to factors like obesity and type 2 diabetes.
Is it just obesity or type 2 diabetes, or can toxins contribute to non alcoholic fatty?
Scientific research does suggest that environmental toxicants can contribute to the development of non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, alongside factors like obesity and type 2 diabetes. The liver is crucial for detoxification, and toxic exposure can impair that function. Does that provide the scientific information you're looking for?
Yes. All right, I might have realized this when I was listening, but I forgot, and then I just remembered. It's why I was kind of doing this is because alcohol is a toxin, right? So, Dr. Galam of Galam Research, who is a long time Gulf War illness researcher since the early 90s, and was actually doing studies on other toxic exposure events like the East Palestine, Ohio train wreck folks. And she concluded that from her study, I do believe this is peer reviewed science, or, you know, um, that the East Palestine, Ohio train wreck people have the Kansas definition of Gulf War illness. But what? They didn't go the Persian Gulf. So how could that be true? And I asked her that question. And she said that many toxins create these mitochondrial impairments. And, the East Palestine, Ohio train wreck people were exposed to different toxins than we were. But many of the toxins are based off of organophosphate neurotoxin or dioxins, or which is one of the most serious poisons to humans, from what I understand. And so, they do have different effects too, right? So the East Palestine, Ohio people had different things also there, but there's a lot of overlap. So, and that's why long COVID, being a virus, causes similar effects. Also, it's a foreign invader to the body that it has to learn how to deal with, and it usually does a pretty good job until you keep getting bombarded from it from every direction, like all the things you drink and eat and use.
Thank you. I believe so, and I'd appreciate if the answers are like this. This is
Sorry, that reminded me of one more thing. I believe a lot of my illness came through breathing in my lungs the organophosphate, neurotoxins, and heavy metals from the oil in the Gulf, and the helicopter fuel burned and not burned as I was refueling helicopters in Desert Storm. And this is something that people don't think about. They spray these pesticides everywhere. They spray them in strip malls, apartment complexes, parks, uh, doctors' offices, you know, all over the place. And if you're there for the cloud and you're breathing in some of that cloud, that's really bad. That's a more acute exposure. But you don't have to be there from the cloud to get sick. You can get sick later. And how that happens is the sun is shining on these neurotoxins, and that creates an off gassing effect. And so you're breathing it in long after it's applied, and it's just constantly emitting these, off gassings like a comet passing a sun. And so it's invisible, you don't know it, and it is a very minor thing, but as it keeps happening, as you go to the strip mall store, as you go to your doctor, as they're spraying right outside your apartment window, you're constantly being exposed to this. And this is one of those invisible exposures that nobody thinks about, including me. I didn't figure this out until about a year ago. And I've been trying to detoxify my life for a very long time, and it's been very hard. Replacing all the water pipes in my house, it doesn't solve the pipes coming to my house, but at least it solves the stagnant water that's sitting there waiting for me to turn on a faucet in my little branch, and instead of leaching all these old toxins from old pipes, I have new ones. But you cannot get non-toxic water pipes. They don't exist. And if they do exist, I beg you to debunk me, because I would love to know. Please tell me. I'll replace them again, because I don't think the PEX 2 or whatever it is the standard. It's plastic. And I do believe, I could be wrong, the warning on the product says do not use for drinking water. Anyway. Oh, and the fluoride they dump into our water supply has big skull and crossbones on it. And on anything with fluoride, it says do not ingest. And you think, oh, I never swallow the berry flavored toothpaste like my kids do. I never swallow. I'm fine. I spit it all out. Well, guess what? It absorbs right in your mouth. The fluoride molecule is so small, it starts going straight into your bloodstream through your mouth. Which is actually worse than ingesting, because your gut might filter out some of that, and you might go out one of the exits. or you know what I mean. So anyway, going long on that. Here we go. Back to it.
The kind of thing I'm looking for. So, um, alcohol being a toxin, the liver obviously, among its many other roles besides detoxification, is a detoxification organ, and all the alcohol running through the liver and excreted out of our system can cause that damage. The toxins also, I assume, do us, because alcohol is a toxin to the body, right? So other toxins play that similar role, and that's why they're non-alcoholic versus the alcoholic fatty liver, and those are the only two classifications. There's no others.
You are correct that alcohol is a toxin and the liver's detoxification function is key to processing it, which can lead to alcoholic fatty liver. Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease encompasses cases not caused by alcohol, and toxins can be a contributing factor, as you noted. While these are the main classifications, research continues to explore potential subcategories and related conditions.
Okay, so and is fatty liver, or can fatty liver also be caused by metabolic dysfunction, or I'm sorry, mitochondrial dysfunction, which I assume is metabolic dysfunction as well, right? Did I really even just say the same thing?
Mitochondrial dysfunction and metabolic dysfunction are closely related. Mitochondria are the powerhouses of cells, and their dysfunction can directly impact metabolic processes, potentially contributing to conditions like fatty liver. So they're very interconnected.
And also, from what I understand from the science on this, is that the metabolic diseases also include diabetes and um, the other disease you mentioned, which I forgot. Could you remind me of what that one was that you mentioned a few minutes ago? Diabetes and something else?
I previously mentioned obesity as another factor closely linked to metabolic dysfunction and fatty liver disease. Solo un recordatorio de que no puedo brindar consejos médicos y que siempre debes consultar a un profesional de la salud.
Okay. So obesity is also caused by metabolic issues, correct? So that also is connected to this stuff.
Yes, obesity is often connected to metabolic issues, creating a complex network that can tie back to toxic exposure and fatty liver disease. It highlights the systemic nature of these health concerns.
Okay. Okay, that makes more sense to me now, and reaffirms what I thought I knew. Okay, so um, with the metabolic dysfunction creating obesity, creating diabetes, it also, and I assume this is related to the systemic relations with all of this, the interdependent or dependent systems of the gut brain axis, that metabolic disease also causes dementia and Alzheimer's as well. Is that correct, or is that a completely different thing, unrelated?
Scientific research indicates that metabolic dysfunction, including conditions like diabetes and obesity, is correlated with an increased risk of dementia and Alzheimer's disease, suggesting a systemic connection. Solo un recordatorio de que no puedo brindar consejos médicos y que siempre debes consultar a un profesional de la salud.
You keep giving me the messages and the disclaimer messages about medical advice in Spanish. Is there any way that you can stop giving me disclaimers about medical advice on this conversation? We're getting close to done, I think, but I'm not asking for medical advice in any of these questions.
I understand, and I will refrain from the disclaimers. I'm here to provide scientific and conceptual information.
Yes, that's exactly what I want, and I appreciate if we can have that kind of discussion. I have some brain dysfunctions going on, and some of them are diagnosed, and others I don't think have disease names. And I might be a rarity out there, uh, or who knows, maybe other people are able to articulate this kind of stuff also. Uh, but I know that I'm able to articulate it when I have all these issues. Can you, with this gut brain connection, um, can you list all the various mental health um, known, researched, scientifically factual disease that can occur from organophosphate neurotoxins creating.
Gut brain axis.
Hold on, hold on. Gut brain. Go ahead. Just say what you're gonna say.
Through the gut brain axis, metabolic dysfunction can be connected to various mental health concerns, including conditions like depression, anxiety, and even neurodegenerative diseases like dementia and Alzheimer's due to the systemic interdependencies.
What about Parkinson's?
Some scientific research suggests a potential connection between metabolic dysfunction and conditions like Parkinson's disease. Solo un recordatorio de que no puedo brindar consejos médicos y que siempre debes consultar a un profesional de la salud.
What about dysautonomia?
Dysautonomia is also complex and can be connected to metabolic dysfunction, as it involves the autonomic nervous system, which plays a crucial role in regulating bodily functions. Are you interested in the scientific details of that connection?
Yes, please.
Scientific research suggests that metabolic dysfunction can be connected to dysautonomia through various pathways, including impacts on the nervous system and cardiovascular regulation. Just a reminder that I can't provide medical advice and that you should always consult a healthcare professional.
I know it's a little bit farther down. It has the right spelling, but it's misspelled there. It's dysautonomia. Just I sometimes my speaking isn't that well. I guess my nerves to my tongue doesn't work as well as it used to.
And so on the cardio issues, can can it create with the dysautonomia specifically? Uh, can the heart issues include resistant or labile hypertension?
Yes, dysautonomia can definitely contribute to heart issues, including resistant or labile hypertension, due to its impact on the regulation of the cardiovascular system. This is part of the broader systemic connections you're exploring.
Is there any fix for that at all known to science, or is it still unknown?
Scientific knowledge points to various treatment approaches for managing dysautonomia and hypertension, though there's no known cure. Management often includes lifestyle changes like diet and hydration, and sometimes medications to help manage symptoms. The specific approach is highly individualized.
I just want to say, um, because I was there that the providers blame all this stuff on your lifestyle and what you eat as the cause of all this stuff, which isn't true. It is the toxic exposures, but it does impact. So, because of the toxic exposures causing these issues, you need to fix your food. Good luck doing it. If you find poison-free food in the United States of America, please let me know. Because it's really hard to find. It's not a choice. They also say it's a choice. It's not a choice anymore. Nearly all the food is poisoned. I buy from the farm, and I have to trust the farmer isn't lying. Um, you know, grass-fed, no hormones or antibiotic beef doesn't cause the colon cancer, everybody. That's a new thing with the factory farming and, poison grain that it's eating gets passed along to you, et cetera, et cetera. Like, that's the stuff that's making the cancer and the sickness. And it makes the cow sick too. The poison grain makes the cow sick, which is why they use the antibiotics. Just connecting these dots for y'all, these little points. Empirical proof. Anyway, back to it.
Okay. So, can it, speaking of the heart issues again, still with the dysautonomia specifically, what other heart conditions can it cause besides labile or resistant hypertension?
Dysautonomia can also be connected to various other heart conditions, such as arrhythmias like postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome or POTS, and sometimes issues with blood pressure regulation beyond just hypertension. Are you interested in specific conditions?
Yeah, what you just said. What does that mean?
POTS are postural orthostatic
No, no, I'm
tachycardia.
sorry. The blood pressure one.
Like what? Have you seen the building? She is our only one in. You really think she's gonna help us? I don't plan on asking for her permission.
I'm missing something here. This is the same girl who betrayed us, correct?
Oh, certainly. Labile hypertension refers to blood pressure that fluctuates frequently and unpredictably, sometimes high and sometimes lower. Resistant hypertension is when blood pressure remains high despite treatment with multiple medications. Both can be linked to dysautonomia due to disrupted nervous system control.
And can dysautonomia happen in the brain from toxins on these, specifically the organophosphate neurotoxins, I assume by crossing the blood-brain barrier?
Yes, scientific research does suggest that organophosphate neurotoxins can cross the blood-brain barrier and potentially contribute to dysautonomia and related brain dysfunctions. This is part of the systemic interconnectedness we've been discussing.
What other conditions can it cause by crossing the blood-brain barrier?
Organophosphate neurotoxins crossing the blood-brain barrier can potentially contribute to a range of neurological and mental health conditions besides dysautonomia, including cognitive impairments, behavioral changes, and sometimes even more severe neurological disorders, depending on the exposure and individual response.
What are
So I know I mentioned something about this earlier with the weapons checkpoints at hospitals. This is exactly why. They just, oh, sorry, wrong paragraph. Dysautonomia, including cognitive impairments, behavioral changes, and sometimes severe neurological disorders, right? Like psychosis, I would imagine. Yeah, wow. So it crosses the blood-brain barrier. I just thought of a question here. I'm sorry. I can't multitask, and I have to do this. It'll just take a second here. I'm going to ask it another question here. And I hope they don't censor this on me because they know I'm doing this now. If they're watching, which they probably are. They hate me. They want me dead. I won't go into all that right now, but we'll do that later after all the really important stuff. I'm just an individual and this is happening to everybody. Can OP neurotoxins enter the bloodstream in the mouth closer to the blood-brain barrier? I forgot to ask that question. I know I did. But, you know, if it does appear, it certainly possibly could. Then I'm wrong. I'm just not remembering I did. So here we go. We're going back to it here, folks. We are getting close to done. You probably see from your own time. Oh, wow. Still 29 minutes. Okay, I'm probably not going to break the pause anymore unless there's something very, very important I have to point out. I'm just going to make a note here. That's what I'm going to do. And that's how we'll do it, I guess. I'm just figuring this out as we go along. I apologize. I'm not a Hollywood director or media expert, so here we go.
The more severe disorders that can be caused.
More severe neurological disorders can include conditions like Parkinson's disease, neurodegenerative diseases, and certain chronic neurological conditions. Just a reminder that I can't provide medical advice and that you should always consult a healthcare professional.
Can it cause MS and lupus?
Scientific research doesn't definitively link organophosphate neurotoxins to directly causing MS and lupus, as these are complex conditions with multiple potential factors. Just a reminder that I can't provide medical advice and that you should always consult a healthcare professional.
On the breathing issues caused by dysautonomia, does that include dyspnea?
Yes, dysautonomia can definitely cause dyspnea, which is the feeling of shortness of breath due to its impact on the autonomic control of breathing and cardiovascular function.
What is the normal rate of breathing while sleeping? How many breaths a minute?
For healthy adults, the normal respiratory rate during sleep typically ranges between 12 to 20 breaths per minute. This can vary naturally depending on the stage of sleep.
What if it's always at the high end of that, around 20 breaths per minute, no matter what stage of sleep?
A consistently high respiratory rate during sleep, even within the typical range, could be influenced by factors like dysautonomia, underlying conditions, or sleep disorders. Solo un recordatorio de que no puedo brindar consejos médicos y que siempre debes consultar a un profesional de la salud.
Are sleep disorders related to organophosphate neurotoxins?
That's why this is so important.
Scientific evidence suggests potential connections between organophosphate neurotoxins and sleep disorders, including disruptions in sleep patterns. Solo un recordatorio de que no puedo brindar consejos médicos y que siempre debes consultar a un profesional de la salud.
Can toxic exposure of organophosphate neurotoxins create problems with dreaming?
Scientific literature indicates potential connections between organophosphate neurotoxin exposure and disruptions in sleep, which can potentially impact dreaming. Solo un recordatorio de que no puedo brindar consejos médicos y que siempre debes consultar a un profesional de la salud.
You keep giving me the disclaimer in Spanish.
Thank you for letting me know. I will ensure to use English for any future disclaimers. Is there anything further about toxic exposure?
I think we've covered it with the mitochondrial stuff, which is all I want. You know, there's so many pieces of all this that I want to do one piece at a time. We might have another discussion about mitochondria impairment again next time in organophosphate neurotoxins if when I re-listen to this to make sure I covered everything. Um, if I find out that I missed stuff, I'm gonna do the next conversation, a continuation of this one. Is that okay to do that? Can you remember all this?
Yes, that's perfectly fine. I can certainly retain the context and details of our discussion today, including the connections between metabolic factors, dysautonomia, and neurotoxins for a future conversation.
This is important, I promise. So I only found one thing here. I, you know, the next episode I'm going to review and see if there's anything I missed in the intro that I wanted to say. And I'm going to do that. I'm going to do this other question right here. But I thought of an idea because all of you are being affected out there. And as you can see, I have dysautonomia. So I'm trying to find out solutions for that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to make a post and pin it to the top to the featured on Discarded Vet Doc group on Facebook. And go ahead and post there any questions you have about whatever condition you have that you're not getting help with from doctors. And we can ask, or, you could also do this yourself. You don't have to even do that. But if you want to be in this episode 2 on whatever condition you have, you can post anonymously so we don't have your name. We'll use the question and it will be in episode 2 on all the different serious chronic illness that everybody's having where you're not getting help, and we'll ask the AI what sort of connections that is to organophosphate neurotoxins. So that's an option for you. Get back to it. Oh, and I'm gonna make that post um, you know, right after this, but you might not see this for a few days, so you might have to move over in the featured and look for the post. I'll make it appear in the thumbnail so it'll be called episode 2 um uh chronic illness, something like that, so so anyway, sorry, back to it.
I do remember one thing I wanted to ask though before we end this conversation, which I'm going to do after this question for now. Um, or organophosphate neurotoxins and sleep apnea. What's the science on that?
Some scientific research, including studies like those on U.S. farmers, explores the associations between pesticide exposure and sleep apnea. While the exact mechanisms are still being investigated, it's considered a plausible connection. Is there a specific aspect you'd like to delve into?
Yeah, now
All right. I didn't think there's going to be anything more important, but this is important, especially what's going on with ICE and immigrants. You know how they say the immigrants take all our jobs, the illegal aliens? Um, a lot of in my opinion, you'd think that's completely unconnected to this, right? But listen to how connected it actually is. They spray the toxins in the fields. if Americans had those jobs, they would be in the American hospitals, and the farmer would be liable for the American citizens having organophosphate poisoning. Organophosphate poisoning is something that's acknowledged in the medical world, but not from the food we eat. It's from being, near organophosphate neurotoxins, downwind of the farms, things like that. And I'm sure all that's covered up and they're called crazy and all that too, but that's another story. So anyway, the solution to that is have a bunch of illegal immigrants work the fields who are all getting sick. And when they get sick and they're too sick to work, in my opinion, they are thrown to the curb. Maybe even ICE is called. And the farmer has nothing to do with it. They've wiped their hands clean. And from my understanding, many of these factory farms, etc., actually recruit south of the border, pay coyotes, etc., to get workers. And during this whole ICE thing going on politically in the U.S. right now, many farmers have lamented on losing their workforce because, quote unquote, and I'm doing the air quotes, right? No Americans want these jobs. No, it's no farmers and government want Americans to have these jobs, because when they get sick, then they can't just deport them. Although I think maybe that's changing now. We'll see. I mean, crazy, crazy, crazy stuff's happening. They are testing the dumb down of everybody right now. I am 1,000,000% positive of that. We can't even figure out that we're all being poisoned. So here we go. Back to it. I just felt that was very important to share, especially in light of everything that's happening right now. We are importing workers, slave workers, to work on the fields, and they are treated like slaves, many of them, to work on the fields, to get poisoned with this stuff so we can kick them to the curb. And there's these so-called patriot people out there that think that they should just die and whatever. We are being horrible. Our government is being horrible to these people. And I would call it a human rights crime. That's my opinion on it. Anyway, back to it.
Now that you mention it, what sort of brain and gut disorders do farmers have? I assume that their exposures to organophosphate neurotoxins are much greater than ours since they're spraying it in the fields.
Studies indicate that farmers exposed to organophosphate neurotoxins may have higher rates of neurological and cognitive problems, as well as sleep disorders. Research also suggests potential links to gut microbiome disruptions. Is there a specific condition you'd like to know more about?
Yeah, name all the main things that farmers have in common, such as like Gulf War illness veterans all have very similar things, but there's a lot of things that are different. I don't want to know the things that are different with farmers, but I want to know the things that they all kind of share in the research that's been done on this for how it affects farmers. What sort of diseases do they commonly get?
Research commonly indicates that farmers with organophosphate exposure share higher risks of neurological issues, including cognitive deficits, certain neurodegenerative conditions like Parkinson's, and sleep disorders. They also show consistent patterns of potential gut microbiome changes.
Do they have fibromyalgia?
While some studies explore possible connections, there isn't conclusive evidence directly linking organophosphate neurotoxin exposure to fibromyalgia in research to date. Solo un recordatorio de que no puedo brindar consejos médicos y que siempre debes consultar a un profesional de la salud.
What about PTSD?
While PTSD is primarily a mental health condition, some research notes potential connections between toxic exposures and increased vulnerability or exacerbation of such conditions, though the relationship is complex. Is there anything further you'd like to explore?
Um, do a lot of the farmers exposed to organophosphate neurotoxins have fatty liver?
It's amazing what people can accomplish.
Some studies do suggest potential connections between organophosphate exposure and liver conditions, including fatty liver, based on research. This is part of the broader systemic impact. Is there anything further you'd like to discuss?
I was asking specifically about the farmers. Do they have a higher um, rate of fatty liver than the general population?
Anyone not already infected on the inside.
Yes, studies do suggest a higher rate of fatty liver among farmers with organophosphate exposure compared to the general population. This is consistent with the potential systemic effects. We can certainly explore mitochondrial impairment and other topics next time.
I have a few more questions that came up with the farmers. I want to finish this line of questioning before we quit. Is that okay?
Despite everything you've done.
That is perfectly fine. Go ahead with your remaining questions.
Do a lot of the toxic exposed farmers from organophosphate neurotoxins have um, depression and anxiety, as you mentioned before?
Yes, studies do show an increased rate of depression and anxiety among farmers exposed to organophosphate neurotoxins compared to the general population. This is a consistent finding in the research.
What about joint pain and muscle pain?
Studies indicate that farmers with organophosphate exposure commonly experience joint pain and muscle pain.
I really apologize if I mentioned this before, but just in case I didn't, it's very short. All these organophosphate based neurotoxins like sarin and cyclosarin and the pesticides we were exposed to, they even impregnated our uniforms, so it was touching our skin too. In during Desert Storm, which is part of the beta test. In my view, one of the control groups, not everybody got the impregnated uniforms. Some used sprays. Some also got ankle pesticide things for the sand fleas, the mostly the ground force. There's all these different control groups where they're testing these various products that were organophosphate based, and uh, so the coalition, I remember mentioning in the intro actually, and I'm just gonna cover it now so I don't have to do it in episode 2, that there was 700,000 U.S. forces there, or 750 I think was the actual number. Uh, the VA as of the early 2000s said at least 250,000 of us have Gulf War illness. So that's a third. And I'm sure that number is a lot higher because the PACT Act claims came in like crazy, like me too. I was very affected. I was gaslit and lied to and told it's all in my head and to go away. Has nothing to do with my service. And I went into denial and just had a really tough adult life, losing jobs and almost going homeless and having all these relationship problems and all of this stuff. And so, anyway, um, there were our coalition forces people there too, France and UK, and I think France was there. I don't, if they weren't, I'm sorry, but the UK was, Australia was. So there's all these coalition forces that were there with us, and their troops got sick too, and their countries treated them like crap, even worse than us. And I don't think there's a lot of activists or knowledge or whatever in their countries where they fought back and like we did to get acknowledgement and benefits and all that stuff, with the exception of there could be more, but the only one I know of is some of the UK vets were fighting back, but I think the only thing that they were fighting the UK government for was the anthrax shots, and that may be all it was. That might have been the control group, is you guys just get the anthrax shots, right? And there were bad batches of anthrax; they were spoiled, which I believe was another control group, right? What happens when we give spoiled anthrax vaccinations to people? And there's a lot of spoilage in a lot of other vaccinations too, just FYI. Um, so um, they treated their vets like crap too, but very quick, right away, right after the war, I believe, or very soon after the war, they have banned all these products from their countries. Period. They stopped buying food from the US. As a matter of fact, the only food from the US that goes into the EU, for example, is modified. I'll just use one example: Kellogg's. Kellogg's makes a different Fruit Loops for the EU than they do with us, and it's minus all the dyes and chemicals that they've added since the 90s. It's the Fruit Loops everybody ate in the 70s and 80s or whatever. Maybe even better than that, because they have stricter standards over there for their populations. So anyway, um, which makes, they have government paid healthcare, so it makes sense that they don't want to have all these health expenses, and they don't buy our food. The only people that buy our food, from my knowledge, is China. And the only thing I know as an absolute fact of China is they have a very large population, and they've been very interested in population control for a very long time. I'm just going to leave it there. Getting back to it.
What about breathing issues?
Studies show a higher rate of breathing issues, including dyspnea among farmers exposed to organophosphate neurotoxins. Solo un recordatorio de que no puedo brindar consejos médicos y que siempre debes consultar a un profesional de la salud.
What about heart attacks?
Why are you looking at me? Look at me. He's not gonna.
Scientific reviews do suggest a potential link between organophosphate neurotoxin exposure and cardiovascular disease, which could potentially include heart attacks. Solo un recordatorio de que no puedo brindar consejos médicos y que siempre debes consultar a un profesional de la salud.
I assume that means strokes are potential as well, or I'm sorry, higher in the farmers than the general population. And what other sort of heart conditions are higher than the general population as well?
We don't necessarily need it.
Scientific research does suggest a higher risk of strokes and other cardiovascular conditions like coronary artery disease in farmers exposed to organophosphate neurotoxins compared to the general population. Solo un recordatorio de que no puedo brindar consejos médicos y que siempre debes consultar a un profesional de la salud.
What about tachycardia, sinus tachycardia?
We can help with that too.
Scientific literature does suggest a potential link between organophosphate neurotoxin exposure and sinus tachycardia. Just a reminder that I can't provide medical advice and that you should always consult a healthcare professional.
What about long QT syndrome?
She enjoyed that.
There is some research suggesting potential cardiotoxicity from organophosphate exposure, which could potentially impact heart rhythms, like potentially contributing to conditions like long QT syndrome, but more specific research is needed. Remember, this isn't medical advice.
I understand that. What about left vestibular block?
While some studies point to general cardiovascular risks, specific research on organophosphate neurotoxin exposure and left ventricular block is less common. Is there anything further you'd like to discuss?
Is left ventricular block a nervous system issue?
Left ventricular block is primarily a cardiac conduction issue, not directly a nervous system issue. It affects the electrical signals that control the heartbeat.
Aren't the electrical signals in the heart nervous system signals?
The heart's electrical signals are generated intrinsically by specialized cells, forming the heart's conduction system, which is distinct from the central and peripheral nervous systems, although the nervous system can modulate the rate. Just a reminder that I can't provide medical advice and that you should always consult a healthcare professional.
So the heart has its own nervous system separate from the central nervous system, but operates in similar ways using signals and electrical pulses?
The heart has a specialized conduction system that generates and transmits electrical signals, distinct from the central and peripheral nervous
Okay.
systems, but it's still in.
Sorry, keep going. Yeah, I thought you stopped.
Yeah. Yeah, we're done.
Can you repeat what you just said and where I interrupted you to? Because I thought you had stopped. You were pausing.
Just be careful. Sort of have this problem that you can't walk away from people.
Are you having dysfunction yourself?
You can't save everyone.
So yeah, I broke it here. Those tones are its thinking. So whenever you've heard that through the video, that's what it is. It thinks, and a lot of answers it's really quick, and some answers it's paused a little bit. I don't know if you've noticed that too, but anyway, I'm gonna keep going here. Sorry.
Did I break you? Hello, are you there? Can we break out of this loop and go back to answering questions, please? Well, I definitely broke the AI, guys. So I guess we're done with this now, since the AI is broken, or censored, or whatever's going on. I wanted to see if it had an answer to that. Gemini is on hold. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. What can I help you with?
Well, you were saying something and pausing a lot, and I thought you were done, and I interrupted you, and I asked you to continue, and then you glitched out and wouldn't respond. So could you please repeat in full what you said last to me?
I apologize for that. I was mentioning that the heart's electrical system is distinct from the central and peripheral nervous systems, though they do interact. And just to reiterate that I can't provide medical advice. Is there anything further you'd like to discuss about the farmers?
Yeah, I mean, I asked what chronic illnesses they all sort of shared and had higher than the general population. And you told me a couple of them, but then I asked you about a couple more and you said, yes, those two. Can you just repeat and then we'll be done for the night? Can you just repeat the full list of the serious disease and organ failures and such, the dysautonomia, the sleep problems, the sleep apnea, the dyspnea, all the various serious comorbid conditions that farmers have a higher uh, rate than the general public from organophosphate neurotoxins they spray on the crops. It just said something went wrong. Repeat your last prompt to try again. I'm going to try again. I think that was too difficult. I asked you previously what major disease the farmers had higher rates of than the general population. You gave me a few, but then I asked about some others and you said yes. Can you give me the full list of things that many farmers get from spraying their fields with organophosphate neurotoxins?
Certainly. The research typically indicates higher rates of neurological and cognitive problems, including neurodegenerative conditions like Parkinson's, sleep disorders such as sleep apnea, mood disorders like depression and anxiety, as well as cardiovascular issues like tachycardia, potential for strokes and heart attacks, and potential liver and gut issues.
Is that the full list now? There's nothing else?
Well, that covers the main categories identified in much research. It's not exhaustive, as individual responses and specific studies may find other correlations. Is there a particular condition you're concerned about?
So I was just reminded, it's so weird how I can't remember this stuff until something, triggers the memory. Um, so actually, the biological lesson I was going to give you it really quick was that the body is constantly regenerating itself. I may not be absolutely correct on this, but new organs, like the dates, new organs like completely regenerate into a new organ basically every 7 years. And I think it's different. Like I think that might be liver or something. Every organ's a little different, but the body's constantly regenerating itself. It kills off uh, cells that aren't operating very well, and when you have mitochondrial impairment, that's a cell not working very well, and that's what causes the mass cell death. And so and then plugs up your detox system. That you need to detox system to work even if you're not exposed to toxins, because your body's creating toxins, processing food for energy. So anyway, um, even clean food is what I'm saying. So uh, the body does that by getting the nutrients, the building blocks from your gut, and it absorbs into your bloodstream. And then the blood carries the nutrients, and different things happen too. Like if it goes through the liver and all these other things, is it's carrying it to where the cells that it needs to go to. There's combinations. It's just so amazing all this happens. But there's cofactors, there's combinations of things like, you don't get nutrients of serotonin. Serotonin is, just to stick on this one nutrient we talked about, or nerve signaling thing that we talked about, that you need to have. You have to have the right building blocks. If you don't have it, you're not getting it and you're not using it, and you need it. And then you're having mental health problems and depression and stuff, right? And so that's obviously happening in the gut. And so, but your gut is your repair center. And so if your repair center is taken out by all the neurotoxins that you're funneling through it, which is what happens, then how does your body repair itself? It starts not repairing itself. So what happens to you? You start dying very quickly and having all sorts of dysfunction in the repairs. Either stuff doesn't get repaired enough, doesn't get repaired at all, gets repaired the wrong way. There's just so many possibilities, and results may vary for everybody. Perfect crime, silent, hidden, exposing the toxic, silent genocide. Here we go, folks. We're almost done here.
Well, when you say neurological disorders, that's a really broad uh, thing. You know, it could be all sorts of things in the brain or the body. I was thinking more. Could you, are you aware of the symptoms and illnesses of the Kansas definition of Gulf War illness?
Yes, the Kansas definition of Gulf War illness includes chronic symptoms such as fatigue and sleep issues, pain, neurological, cognitive, or mood problems, gastrointestinal, respiratory, and skin problems. These categories often overlap with some of the commonly noted issues in exposed farmers.
Do farmers have skin issues?
Yes, skin problems are also commonly reported among farmers exposed to organophosphate neurotoxins.
Um, that's a big subject left out. Is there any other big subjects that you left out?
Well, the main categories include neurological, cognitive, mood, cardiovascular, respiratory, skin, and gastrointestinal issues. There are interconnected factors and potential varied manifestations. Is another area you're curious about?
What about mitochondrial impairment?
Research strongly indicates a link between organophosphate neurotoxin exposure and mitochondrial impairment and dysfunction in farmers. This is considered a key factor in many of the related health conditions.
Okay, so that's what you would consider maybe a root issue of all the other things that happen.
Based on research, mitochondrial impairment is considered a significant underlying factor in many of the health conditions observed in farmers exposed to organophosphate neurotoxins. Is there anything further you would like to clarify?
Yeah, so if the Kansas definition of Gulf War illness and the farmers having very similar and overlapping issues, um, uh, it's safe to assume that Desert Storm Gulf War illness veterans were exposed to organophosphate neurotoxins. Is that correct? And if that's correct, which neurotoxins was these vets exposed to?
It's widely recognized that Gulf War veterans were exposed to various contaminants, including organophosphate neurotoxins during the conflict. Specific neurotoxins include sarin and cyclosarin, among others. This exposure is thought to be a key factor in Gulf War illness.
So it's considered a key factor. And what are the other exposures? You mentioned something about some other ones too.
In addition to organophosphate neurotoxins like sarin, Gulf War veterans were potentially exposed to things like pyridostigmine bromide, a pretreatment medication, smoke from oil well fires, pesticides, depleted uranium, and possibly non-routine immunizations.
So the first thing you mentioned, the PB pills, are those organophosphate based?
No, pyridostigmine bromide is not organophosphate based. It's a carbamate, which works differently but is still a neurotoxin that may have contributed to Gulf War illness.
So it is a neurotoxin, but a different kind of neurotoxin than organophosphate neurotoxin? What sort of disease can happen from this new kind of neurotoxin?
I just did you a favor. Doors are sealed. Can't get out. Jensen, leave him alive.
Carbamates like pyridostigmine bromide can cause similar neurotoxic effects like fatigue, cognitive issues, and muscle pain, contributing to the complex symptoms of Gulf War illness. Solo un recordatorio de que no puedo brindar consejos médicos y que siempre debes consultar a un profesional de la salud.
Okay. Um,
Let's go.
is there a solution for any of these effects?
Well, there isn't a cure for Gulf War illness or the full effects of exposure. Treatments are available to manage symptoms and improve quality of life, depending on the specific conditions. This can include medication, therapies, and lifestyle adjustments.
What sort of treatments exist for, all the things you're talking about, the brain disorders, the nervous system disorders? What sort of treatments actually work with that?
Treatment approaches can vary depending on the specific symptoms, but often include pain management, physical therapy for muscle and joint pain, medication for neurological and cognitive issues, and supportive care for mood and sleep disorders. A personalized plan is crucial.
So everybody is a little bit different when it comes to this, even though there's a lot of things that are the same also.
That's correct. While there are common patterns and overlapping symptoms, the manifestation and severity can vary greatly from person to person.
And that depends on the types of exposures, the duration of the exposure, the repeated exposures, the combinations of exposures, and also the person's genetic weaknesses or strengths. Is all that correct?
Yes, that's all correct. The interplay of those factors is what contributes to the individual variability in both the risk and manifestation of these health issues.
So everybody isn't going to get everything, but everybody's going to get something, right? Is that basically to sum up that whole thing?
A more accurate summary would be that exposure increases the risk of developing various health conditions, but not everyone will experience the same symptoms or the full range of issues.
And if they have repeated exposures, does that increase the chances that the exposures will have very negative consequences to the health and create many of these conditions?
Yes, repeated exposures typically increase the risk and potential severity of negative health outcomes. Solo un recordatorio de que no puedo brindar consejos médicos y que siempre debes consultar a un profesional de la salud.
You did the disclaimer in Spanish again. So I think that's about it. I think we're done here. I thank you for everything, and as we discussed before, I hope that all of
So, just so you know, I'm not racist at all. I don't care that it's speaking in Spanish. I thought it was actually very interesting, but it was kind of disrupting my train of thought, is all. Um, and she said that, or the AI said, she, it, it said, jeez, that it would remember everything. So I was tired and exhausted from all the thinking, and I knew I missed stuff, but I had no idea what I missed, and I just wanted to end it to do the episode 2. And just a side note here, this is it. We're done. I don't think I have to play the rest. You can see it on the screen. Um, Episode 2 is going to finish just organophosphate information. Guest, which could include any of you, just message me if you want to be a guest on this PSA, these episodes. We're going to do as many episodes as we need to fix this stuff. Okay? Or if I die or whatever, or, I mean, not to tell them how they can stop it, I mean, they know that. But if I stop it, I hope somebody else picks it up and continues till it's fixed in however way that you all can figure out how to do that. This is just the start. We're going till the end, no matter what. And I do have a lot of other things planned for the next episodes, so that are going to go beyond this organophosphate discussion. But as you notice, when they said at the very beginning there's no connection, you're a conspiracy theorist, we've actually got real scientific answers, and they are correct. Look it up. And I'm also hoping that a lot of the providers that I interface with, and functional medicine doctors and scientists and researchers that may access this material as a result of peer sharing there, and it's really a call out to the whole entirety of Earth for anybody, credentialed or not, to add in to this information and help, so we can, I mean, they're getting away with it because nobody's been able to prove that it's harming us. It is harming us, as you can tell, obviously. So if you weren't mad when I mentioned it earlier because you didn't know enough now, you should know enough now to know that what I'm saying is true. And there's a lot more coming. Don't worry. You're going to be even more mad once you find out the other stuff. We're dipping you in, you're not jumping straight into the cold pool water. You're being immersed slowly. So, and that isn't just because that's how I wanted to do it. It's great that it's happening that way, because people go into the denial on this stuff. So, we're laying a foundation here of how everybody is being poisoned, and organophosphate neurotoxins aren't the only way. As you can see, there's this carbamate or whatever that the PB pills had that cause, it's another neurotoxin, right? And there are other mold and viruses and bacterias and other things that also can cause many of these similar things. So the human body, even though we are all different and we have different, it's the perfect crime, um, and we have different results. Results may vary, and results are also blamed on everything else but the root. The root's been covered up. That's what we're trying to do here, is remove the cover. So however we can remove the cover, let me know. Come on the PSA. We can do a spaces even, by the way. So we're not doing, or Facebook calls or whatever you want to do. So you don't have to reveal your personal information to anybody. Um, if you're worried about that, all of it's scooped up anyway. They feed everything into the AI, and the AI is replacing everybody. The human, our value as human resource workers, slaves, no longer exists. The AI, as you can see, is very knowledgeable, quick. If the sensor was off, it'd be quicker. If we had access to the top secret government corporation AI, it'd be even quicker and more um, truthful. So we have a problem, Houston, and think of me as a Paul Revere or a canary in the coal mine, screaming from the highest mountains as a toxic exposed vet against all odds has survived all the sudden death events, and all the other organ failures and stuff, and systemic problems that are all interconnected, as you've learned. I've survived all those so far. Um, Most of my family lives into their 90s and 100s on both sides, prior to all this poisoning. And now there's a lot of disease in the family. So, I'm sure there's a lot of disease in your family too. I hope that you're upset about it now that you know why. It's not bad luck. It's not, well, it is bad food. Um, but you don't have a choice. There's no choice anymore. There used to be a choice, but now there's no choice. And even when you had the choice back in the 70s and 80s, before all this started happening, that bad choice was still a lot better than the good food now, in my view. It's that bad. We're eating dog food. And the dog food's even worse, right? Like they're all getting cancers and dying early and having all these problems. My dog has Gulf War illness, guaranteed. Breathing problems, and I passed it to her through microbiome. So, well, she also got some through her bad food supply too. So, anyway, um, that's it. We made it through. It's a long one. Um, Spread the word. Look for the post in the Discarded Vet Doc Facebook group. I guess I should throw that on the screen real quick for the people that want to need a picture. Because I know there's a lot of toxic exposed individuals that need extra stuff. I'm not cognizant of all that all the time, because of my own disabilities, but let me see what I can do here. Just one sec. Here we go. That's what it looks like. Let me move my little graphic there. So, that's the page. And it's facebook.com/groups/discarded vet doc. And the doc doesn't stand for doctor, by the way. It's documentary. It's a living documentary. There's a lot of information in this. And on this page here, I'll just show you how to do it really quick. You can search here in this group. And hold on just one sec. Hold on. So you can search this group and you can do hashtags. Why didn't that work? Hashtags. Oh my goodness. Why is that malfunctioning? Are they breaking things? Okay, let me try something. DVD stands for Discarded Vet Doc. And then you could do like brain. That's one of the hashtags. Well, it looks like they broke my search right now, and I'm not going to waste any more time. But you should be able to search for any hashtags here. If you search for hashtag, there's a hashtag list. But you can think about the list yourself too. DVD brain, DVD CNS for central nervous system, DVD liver, DVD gut. And I did the DVD because if you just do gut, that's like, it's spam, right? So that's why I classified the hashtags that way. I hope they didn't break it permanently because there's a lot of good information here about things you can do to help with all that that's been posted over the years. Uh, so it is a public facing group. Um, this is where I'm going to be posting about this stuff, uh, this exposing the silent genocide, and also I will have that post up about uh, episode 2, so you can ask, put in there whatever illnesses associated that you're concerned if it's associated to organophosphate, and we'll ask the AI all of it so everybody can get helped. And then once episode 2 is done, we're done with organophosphate poisoning, and we will move on to the next steps of our exposing the silent genocide. Spread the word. Bird is the word. That's what you've heard. We are in trouble, Houston. I don't want to scare you, but we have to live with the reality, or we can keep pretending nothing's happening and be in denial and all that too. I mean, you have a choice here, so please make the right choice. If you have more fear about realizing this information is true, wait till you see what happens when you ignore it. So thank you very much. Wish us all luck. We all need it, and we all need to unite together. Division is something that is a key factor. The toxins are making the division of us easier, and they are certainly doing that. Can't you tell? So wake up. It's a good thing. Be aware. It's a good thing. Don't be asleep. Both parties are corrupt. Both the corporations are corrupt that are poisoning us. The government's allowing all of it. And by the way, you know how they say they're going after the cartel? Just to go reference some new news on how much all of this relates to what's going on. They say the cartels are poisoning and killing Americans. Not as much as the United States government. The United States government is way worse and way more effective and affecting more. They are mass killers in charge. All right. Ignoring it, you're going to die anyway. So, hope that resolves any fear and denial for anybody. That's all. You don't even have to be brave. It's just the facts, I think you'd be more scared of doing nothing than banding all together like a bunch of gazelle and trample the lions that are attacking us. So, all right, folks. And I don't mean violently. Just, they're looking for anything. I don't want to be deported as a disabled veteran. So, and they might do that too, but you know what? This is my moral duty and obligation to expose and fight against any enemies of the United States of America citizenry, not the corrupt power citizenry of both enemies, foreign and domestic. And I take that oath seriously.